Hello, guys. Ugh, let me get my chair up a little bit closer. Hey, everybody. Happy Wednesday. It's snowing where I am. What's the weather like where you guys are? I'm so ready for spring, but I think it's a long way away from here, but that's okay. I won't complain. Snow is beautiful. So we've been talking about intuition over the past couple weeks here. If you missed my first live stream on intuition, it was last week, February 10th, I believe it was. We kind of talked about like the basics of intuition and what it is and sort of like why it's important and how it can really help you. And we talked about like the different stages of intuition that I came up with. So today we're going to talk about a little bit more in depth on like what stage of intuition of like knowing and trusting and feeling your mother's intuition. We're going to be going in a little bit more in depth into each one of those stages. I don't know if you guys can hear that. My daughter's school alarm's going off. She's done with school. Good for her. I'll just have them turn off. Just unplug it. I think, yeah, okay. All right. Okay, just stay down here quietly. Jen wants to say hi. Sorry, we just got started. Okay, so we're talking about intuition. If you missed last week's video, definitely go back to it if you want to like understand a little bit more about what intuition is and why it's important and all that kind of stuff. But we're going to dive in a little bit deeper today. And no matter like where you're at with your intuition, whether you feel super in touch with it or not at all, or somewhere in between, we're going to be going through like some tips and things, steps you can take to kind of like improve it a little bit. So the 4 levels of intuition that I talked about, number 1, level 1, and I would love to hear if you're watching in the comments, like where you feel like you're at with your intuition. So level 1 is where you're just like, what the heck? Intuition, what is that? Like I've heard the word before, but like I've never really like felt like I had one or felt connected with it, or I feel totally lost. So that's stage 1. Stage 2, and what we talked about last week is everybody's got an intuition, whether you feel like you do or not. You had one at some point, it just maybe kind of went away over the years, and that's okay. Stage 2 is where you're like, yeah, I feel like, I kind of have intuition. I've got that mother's intuition. Like, I feel like I've sort of lost it at some point along the way, but I know it's there, is stage 2. Okay. Stage 3 of intuition, and this is all just stuff that I kind of made up. It's not like an official thing out there that you can Google. Stage 3 of your intuition is like, yep, I can definitely hear my intuition. Like I know it's there. I feel it. Like I'm cool. So, and then stage 4 is like, yeah, I can definitely hear and feel my intuition and I trust my intuition. So that's like kind of a big step from like being able to like know your intuition's in there and kind of feel what's right for you and for your baby or like whatever aspect you were talking about of your life. And then just being able to like know it, but then another thing, be able to trust it is like a big step, right? And then lastly, the final step is being able to feel it and hear it and trust it, but then also speak up about it. So, and one of like the very common examples we can use here is with doctors, right? When you're at the doctor and the doctor tells you to do something, either says to stop breastfeeding and switch to formula or eliminate certain foods or whatever, and you feel it in your gut that it just doesn't feel right. Or maybe your doctor brushes you off and is like, no, it has nothing to do with food. Like whatever it is, that's a good example, right? When a doctor tells you something that kind of doesn't really feel right for you, but they're the doctor, so you go off of them, and then maybe weeks or months down the road, you get confirmation that your intuition was right? So being able to speak up about your intuition, and it's not necessarily saying like your doctor's always wrong and you're always right, but being able to speak up about it and have a conversation about it and really get to a point where like you feel good about whatever choices you're making. That's kind of like the final stage 5. Hopefully I did that all right. So I'd love to hear like what stage of your intuition you're at. Okay. And now let's go through each one of these stages, and I'll just give you like a few simple steps you can do to kind of work your way up to the next stage, right? So you can eventually get to that point where you know your intuition, you feel your intuition, you trust your intuition, and you speak your intuition, right? You speak it up, speak it out, I guess is how you would say it. So if you're at stage 1 where you're just kind of like, what the heck is my intuition? Like, I kind of know what that is, but I feel like I don't have one. Like, I feel like I don't feel connected to it at all. If you're at that, then, so there's a lot of exercises out there. You can probably Google some great ones. or meditations or whatever it is. There's a lot of things out there that you can do to get in touch with your intuition. So these aren't like the only things, but they're the ones that I like and I feel like are simple. So when you feel totally disconnected from your intuition, the first step is to just, my guess is you probably don't have much like quiet time, downtime just to yourself. And that's not like quiet time where you're like scrolling Facebook, watching Michelle Beckner Family Wellness live stream replays or whatever, right? It's like actual quiet time, downtime with yourself, with your thoughts, right? So maybe you're pumping, and instead of scrolling your phone or getting work done, you just sit and look out the window, right? I know I try to do that when I pump in the afternoon. I just sit and look out the window and just have that downtime with myself. Or maybe you're waiting for your coffee to brew or your tea to brew. Like find those little pockets of your day where it's just, you just have white space, right? And you're not trying to fill your brain with other things. I know this can be really hard. I know it's really hard for me. I always like to be productive. I always like to feel like I'm using my time wisely and like doing things with it. But really these little pockets of white space are a really good way to use. I feel like I hear a baby crying, but maybe that's the kids' game. That is a really, really productive, great way to use your time, especially if you feel super disconnected from your intuition. So finding those little pockets of white space where you can kind of like check in with yourself and check in with your mind and check in with your body, or just like not think at all. Maybe when you're nursing, like that's another really great time to have like that quiet alone time with yourself, right? So then when it comes to your intuition, a lot of times some people hear like almost like voices in their head, but a lot of times it's more like in your body. You feel it, like you feel if something feels right or if something feels wrong or if something feels scary or whatever it is. It's usually like a physical sensation in your body, and that's different for everyone, right? So the first step is having those kind of pockets of white space where like you're actually hearing your brain think, you're actually feeling your body, right? You can kind of take it another step further once you feel comfortable with just like having white space. And there's this exercise called the body compass exercise. I've learned it. I learned it from someone. And I know they learned it from someone else. So I haven't even tried to Google it. Maybe you can Google it. It's called the body compass exercise. And I think it's one of my favorite ways to get in touch with your intuition. And it's basically, I'll walk you through it like super, super quickly. So basically like you close your eyes, just relax, take a few deep breaths. And first think of something, like a super stressful situation. Maybe it's at work. You have a lot of work to do, and then someone comes in and asks you to do something more. Maybe it's at home, like you slept in, and now the baby's crying, the kids are hungry, and you've got a lot going on. Like whatever it is, think of like a real stressful situation that you've had in your life. It's great if it's like from personal experience, or you can just make something up. Like what would be like the absolute like, oh my gosh, this is like not fun kind of situation. So close your eyes and kind of walk yourself through that. Like, okay, what are people saying to you? What's going on in like around you right now? And then start to notice like how you feel physically in your body. Like, do your shoulders get really tense? Does your heart start to pound? Do you start to get sweaty? Do you start to get fidgety? Like whatever it is, just pay attention to those physical sensations in your body when you're picturing this stressful scene. Okay. And then like literally just like shake it off, take some deep breaths, and we're going to do this again, opposite way. So again, relax, close your eyes, imagine like a really peaceful, calm, like some sort of situation that makes you feel really good. Like however you want to feel, like what makes you feel good, whether it's peaceful and calm or energized and vibrant, like whatever it is that makes you feel good. Imagine one of those situations. So maybe it's like waking up slow and the kids are at the grandparents and your husband's making breakfast, or, or you're at work and you're doing a presentation and you're killing it. Like think of something that feels really good to you. And imagine imagine what you're doing. Imagine what people around you are saying or are doing. Imagine the smells around you. Like kind of put yourself in this situation, whether it's a real one that you've experienced before or a made up one. And then again, notice those physical sensations in your body. Do you feel really relaxed? Do you feel like excited in your stomach, like in a good way? Is your heart pounding like because, I said, is your heart pounding for the stressful situation, but maybe when you get excited about things, your heart pounds, right? So these physical sensations are different for everybody. And that's why you need to find your own body compass. So noticing those physical sensations when you're having like a stressful time where you're not feeling good and you're feeling tense, and then noticing your physical sensations when you're having like a really good time and you're feeling really good. And then leave it at that. And then, next time you feel like, maybe next time you feel your shoulders tense up, you're like, oh, this isn't feeling good for me right now. Right. And that is like a really, really good first step to start getting in touch with your intuition. And you can do that exercise like as many times as you want. So if you start to feel like you're disconnected again, go back to make sure you're having your white space throughout the day, just those little pockets, and then redo that body compass exercise. And like I said, there's a ton of ways to start to get in touch with your intuition, but those are like some 2 really useful, easy, quick ways to do it. And then it's just noticing and always having that white space where you're checking in with yourself mentally and checking in with yourself physically and noticing those sensations in your body, because that's your intuition. And we don't want to ignore it because it's so important, not just as a mom. Your mother's intuition is like so powerful. But it's great for like so many parts of your life. When it comes to like making a big decision for life or work, or deciding what feels right for you, like in your body, what food you're eating or exercise you're doing, or anything in your life, your intuition can be really helpful, and those exercises can be great. Okay, so then level 2, if you're kind of at the stage of intuition where you're like, I kind of feel like I kind of know I have intuition. I've got my mother's intuition, maybe I kind of lost it a little bit there, but I know it's there. I know I've got it. Same thing, like those same 2 exercises that I talked about for the level 1 people will be great for you. Let's see, what else do I have? And then another thing that you can do, which you probably know I'm a big fan of, is affirmations. So you can come up with some affirmations, just reminding yourself that, yes, I do have an intuition, because everybody has an intuition. So you can say something like, I have a strong mother's intuition, and like think it every day and write it down every day. Anything that makes you sort of feel more connected to your intuition. It doesn't have to be like a whole long list of affirmations. It could just be that one sentence. I have a strong mother's intuition. Just say it over and over and over again. Maybe when you have those little pockets of white space, say that affirmation over again too, right? So you're paying attention to your physical sensations. You're having that white space in your mind, and you're reaffirming with yourself that, yes, you do have an intuition, right? So next step from there, if you are at the level 3, where you definitely can hear your intuition or feel your intuition, but you want to get to the point where you're like a lot stronger about, like feeling it a lot stronger and trusting it a lot more, right? Like that's the next step. You may feel it like crazy, but you don't really trust it. You kind of like push it aside, right? Because other people are saying this, the doctor's saying this, Google's saying this, the other moms of the Facebook group are saying this, Michelle's saying this, right? So you're kind of pushing your intuition aside and not trusting it. So if you kind of need to get to that point where you're trusting it, again, affirmations. So like all of the exercises that I talk about, they're good for every level, right? They're good no matter where you are in this whole journey. But affirmations, you can kind of kick them up a notch. You can say like, I have a strong, powerful intuition. I trust my intuition. I trust myself as a mother. I trust myself as a great mother. I trust myself to be the right mother for my baby. I trust myself to make the right decisions for me and my baby. So, just string affirmations together like that, whether off the cuff or you can write them down and say the same ones over and over, but kind of taking you to that next level of trusting of yourself, right? Okay, so sorry, I'm just looking at my notes because I thought of some fun things for you guys. All right, so next, or more about trusting your intuition. So you can do some practices. So the things that we've talked about now are things you can do just like on your own, right? So another thing you can work on is start noticing when you go to others first before you kind of are asking yourself. So there's a balance here, right? Like having a support system, having people to bounce ideas off of, having people to ask questions is really, really helpful, right? Being a mom, or especially being a breastfeeding mom with baby that has food sensitivities, like we can't do this alone, right? But you need to have some level of trust in your intuition, right? So one practice I want you to do is before you go out and Google Google things or ask questions or talk to the doctor or ask anybody else. Ask yourself first. So go inside first and ask yourself like, okay, what am I feeling? It doesn't mean that like, yes, this is the absolute right answer, but get really comfortable with what you're feeling in your intuition before you go and kind of talk it through with your support system, right? And then maybe it'll kind of change your mind, but you'll know because you're having this white space, you're doing these body compass exercises. If you kind of change what you were initially feeling, you'll know it feels right because you've been connected with your intuition, right? And you'll get those feelings, those physical sensations, or just those like voices in your head or whatever your intuition is, you'll get that feeling that it's right? So that's to recap a little bit, like we have all those exercises we talked about, but also when you want to get better at trusting your intuition, make sure you ask yourself and go inside yourself first before you want to ask other people their opinions or like advice or just bounce ideas off of them or whatnot. And notice when you are looking, this is kind of along the same lines, notice when you're looking for permission. So again, it's a balance, right? When you have the support system, it's really, really helpful and so important to have people around you that you can talk to about this kind of stuff and ask these questions, but you don't want to lose sight of like what feels right for you. And I know for me, a lot of times I get stuck in, I know it feels right for me, but I almost need like that outside validation, like someone saying like, yeah, go do that because that's right. I already know that inside of me, and sometimes I just need someone to tell me, and that's okay. But maybe just start noticing, like if you have that same, if you have to do that same thing, and start noticing when you kind of are looking for affirmation and permission outside of yourself. Again, it's okay on a certain level, but we want to make sure that we feel really, really strong, trusting ourselves and trusting our decisions, right? So hopefully that makes sense. Journaling is also a really good way. So you can just like write a question, like something that you're wondering, should I eliminate more foods or do something else? Write it in your journal and just kind of see what comes out. Like keep going, be like, I have no idea. I don't know why I'm writing this. Like I seriously don't know. I should go ask someone. And then maybe like eventually things will come out. So journaling is another great way to start not only getting in touch with your intuition, but trusting your intuition as well. Okay, so lastly is, we've got all these practices to feel our intuition, to know our intuition, to trust it, right? So the last thing is we want to be able to speak it up to people, right? So if someone's giving us advice or telling us to do something that doesn't feel quite right to us, maybe it is the right choice, maybe it's not. But if it doesn't feel right, then we need to do something about it, right? We need to talk about it. So being able to get to the place where you can talk about like, well, I know you say that it doesn't have anything to do with food, but I just really feel like there's a connection here between every time I eat oatmeal and every time the baby has a bad poop. And so it's one thing to like know that in you and trust it. But it's another thing to like turn it into a conversation, right? And ask questions of your doctor or whoever it is that's kind of like putting your intuition in question, I guess you could say. So again, affirmations are great. So some of those affirmations I listed out before. I trust myself to know what's best for me and my baby. I trust myself to be a great mother. I trust myself and my intuition, like anything like that. Affirmations are always, always great. And then another great practice is to look back in the past. When has your intuition been right? And when has your intuition served you? I've seen so many, like countless stories of moms saying like, all the doctors were telling us this, like we went and talked to like the pediatrician and then a second opinion and then a GI doctor and then an allergist. And they were all telling us this, but like, it just really didn't feel right. And then you know what? A few months later, turns out I was right. I had the mother's intuition and I knew it. Find those stories in your life. It doesn't have to be with your baby or with food allergies or whatever, like anywhere in your life where your intuition has turned out to be right, even though like everything seemed to be going against it. Think of those stories and use them as examples. And if you can't think of any examples from your life, ask people or like look for those sort of stories where other people's intuition have been right. And then that can kind of give you the power and the confidence to speak up about your intuition. Okay, I think that's it. I gave you guys a lot of tips, a lot of like things that you can start trying to feel more connected with your intuition wherever you are on this like level of intuitive knowing and intuitive motherhood. If this is like really interesting to you, I'd love to hear it because it's kind of like different from things that I talk about a lot. So I'd love to hear if it's interesting from you. I'd love to hear like where you feel you are on this spectrum of intuition. I'd love to hear if you have any specific questions about any of the exercises or anything like that. And maybe we can talk about it some more. Otherwise, everybody enjoy the rest of your day. Like I said, it's snowing out. It's kind of gray here. But hopefully it'll get pretty if we get enough snow. So I hope everybody has a lovely evening and we'll see you later. Bye.